I've got 3 little short ones. No, I have.
Aren't you lucky?
I'm known for it. And also, I'm going to do 3 little short stories as well. Now, I don't even know how to begin saying this, but I'm going to try and say it without descending into the gutter. It will have not escaped anybody's notice in this pub, I'm pretty sure, that Plymouth City Council have just cut down 110 over 110 trees. Now, this is relevant to what I'm going to do. I'm not just moaning. I was part of the protest and lobby that went to see the council to try and stop them. You were there as well, weren't you?
Yeah.
And we sat through this tedious council meeting, and when the question came up, and one of the protesters asked the question, and anyway, long story short, the council at that meeting agreed to postpone the tree cutting, and everybody cheered, and it was all celebratory, and everybody thought, oh, we've won. And a mate of mine who's dealt with the council in very much the same way for a number of years said, that's not it, that's not the end of it. All they've said is an indefinite postponing. And then they committed to doing a meaningful consultation, which resulted, by the way, in 68% of the people they asked saying, we don't think you should do this. Having received that information, they then waited to the dead of night and cut the bleeding things down anyway, even though an injunction was being dealt in court that very evening. The judge was got out of bed to do this, and he did it, but it was served after the trees were cut. It was, 19 of them, I think, got saved. So I'm going to do a few tree stories in commemoration of the ones that we've lost and I'm never going to get back. So you may have wondered in your life, why is it that the trees lose their leaves in winter? Although the botanists amongst you are sitting there going, well, I could tell you that if you want. To which I reply, I think you know, but that's not actually how it works. Because back long ago, before Plymouth City Council had even been thought of, trees did not lose their leaves, none of them. They were all happy all year round. Now, you will be aware that there are certain species of dicky birds what migrate south in the winter on account of it being too cold and not enough food if they stay. And the winter had arrived and all these dicky birds had gone off except for one of them. One of them had a damaged wing and was only able to fly 100 yards or so, maybe a little bit more, but no way could it make Africa. That wasn't going to happen. And so this little bird was all on his own. It's like, everybody's gone, what am I going to do? And in the forest, I thought, I'm going to need some help. I'm going to need some shelter during the winter. So the bird started talking to the trees and asking them, would you shelter me until my wing's better? Because I can't do the flying sound. I'm stuck. I need somebody really to help look after me. And he went up and he asked the silver birch to do this. And the silver birch said, oh, no, don't be silly little birds. Take a look at me. I'm a special tree. I'm special, me. I've got the most beautiful leaves of all the trees in the forest. And look at this bark. I'm the only one that's got silver bark. I said, well, if I have you up in my branches, you'll be mucking about with my leaves, and you'll be stripping the bark off with your talons and your beak, and he's going, no, you'll mess it all up. So no, I can't do it. No, you're going to ask somebody else. And so the little bird hopped off and came across an oak tree and said, look, please, I can't do the flying south. It's all wings damaged. Can I just live in your branches until my wing gets better, and I'll be gone by then. I won't be any trouble. And the oak said, oh, no, little bird, don't be silly. He says, look, I know what birds are like. I've got experience with birds like you, and my acorns will be gone in no time. You'll have eaten the buggers. No, I'm not having that. No, off you go. Find somebody else. And so the little bird went off and talked to the willow. He tried to talk to the willow, and he gave his stories. I can't fly south. I've got my wings hurty. Can I just in the branch? And the willow said, "Sod off." He goes, "Excuse me," says, "Sod off. I'm willow. I do not speak to anybody. Why do you think I hide behind my branches all the time? I'm not interested in conversations with anybody, whatever the circumstances. Sod off." And so the little bird had to sod off. And it went round tree after tree, was coming up with reasons why they couldn't look after the little bird till his wing got better. Until he got to the spruce. And he gave his little sob story about the wing and the flying south, and will you please look after him? And the spruce said, "Oh," and he said, "No problem." He said, "You can spruce yourself up in my branches." Because it's a little known fact that the spruce tree has got a sense of humour. But no more than just a sense. And for that, was it? So you're wondering how she did that with her back turned, aren't you? Special skill. So the spruce said, "Yes, yes, not at all." And the pine tree had overheard the conversation. Said, "Yes, you can come and live in my branches as well." He said, "Look, I'll tell you what, the spruce said, yeah, he's all right, but I'm really strong and the wind's going to be blowing because it's winter. You'll be safe in here from the wind if you come and do in my branches." And the juniper tree had overheard the conversation, and he said, "Look, as it happens, you can stay with me if you want as well, because it's going to be difficult finding anything to eat, but I've got juniper berries in the winter." He said, "You can have some of them, I've got plenty, no problem." And every conifer that had overheard this conversation was offering their help. So the little bird stayed with the conifers over the winter. Now, it's not well known anymore, but once upon a time it was well known, that all greenery is ruled by a being called Jack in the Green, also known as the Green Man. Now, the reason that's not well known anymore, firstly, is because in these last few centuries we've all been materialists and we're not supposed to believe in anything except money and business and making way for business in the middle of town by cutting bleeding trees down. That's what we're supposed to believe in. But people in the past had a better idea about that. But even before that, the church, bless them, was not keen on us remembering these things, which is ironic, because Jack in the Green, Green Man, is often found in sculptures inside old churches where the people that built the church have gone, "We'll put this somewhere where the boss won't notice." They're at the top of pillars, they're up in the eaves, all these pagan sculptures all over the flipping place. You go to really old churches, I guarantee somewhere in that church, spend long enough looking, you'll find one. So the church was quite keen on us forgetting these things, and the people who built the churches were like, "We'll just put a little reminder up there just so it doesn't get to." And he rode up. King Jack rules the forest, obviously, because he is the being who looks after all greenery. And he'd overheard all of this conversation and the pathetic little thing with the birds and all the trees that had said, "Oh no, we'll bugger off, we're going." And then all the trees that had said, "Yes, come up, yeah, let's have a party." And he rose up. He does that, Jack in the Green. He rises up. You wait till May Day. He does a lot of rising up. And he said, "Oh, it's a sudden breeze." Hello. And he rose up and he addressed all the trees in the forest, and he said, "I'm disgusted with most of you." He said, "I've had enough of you." He said, "You're all supposed to be, I'm connected to every one of you, so I don't miss a thing, right? And I've had enough of some of you, all these nice trees over here that have looked after this little bird. It's only one little bird, wouldn't have hurt." He said, "I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to disconnect myself from half of you trees in this forest. What I'm going to do from now on, I'm going to sleep during the winter. I'm only going to wake up in the springtime. And because you'll be disconnected from me while I'm asleep," he said, "you're going to have a real tough time. You're going to have a tougher time than that little bird was going to have. All your leaves will drop off. There'll be no nourishment in the soil for you. You'll be stuffed." Well, you deserve it. That's what I'm going to do. And then he turned to all the conifers and said, except you buggers, because you were kind to that little bird, I'm going to dream about you while I'm asleep. And while I'm dreaming about you, we'll still be connected. And because we're still connected, you won't lose your leaves, we'll get on fine. Winter will be fine for you lot. And the rest of you, who are destined to be called deciduous, will be screwed. And that's exactly what happened, and that is now why the trees in our day, the deciduous trees all lose their leaves in the winter, because the Jack in the Green falls asleep and wakes up in the springtime, and all the others, they keep their stuff, it's not a problem. So all of those of you who are sitting there with a scientific brain on, going, no, it's to do with biology, chemicals and stuff. It's like, now you know the truth, right? Everybody tells you different, but tell them the story. The second little story I'm going to tell you is also involving trees. There was once a farmer, and every so often he would go into the forest and cut down a few trees so he had some nice logs for his fire. So he could, like, you may have seen in the older houses, people had spaces for these where you like chop the, put the logs in, and then when it would come, you'd have a place to get your axe, and poof, I've done this myself, by the way, poof, and almost by magic, the log splits, and it's great fun. Well, it was when I was younger, I'm not sure if I do it now, but it wasn't. Anyway, so he took his axe into the forest, and I was going to cut down a few trees. I'll have some nice logs to burn during, they'll be drying out, they'll be ready for winter, it'll be lovely. And so he approached the birch tree with his axe, and he thought, that will do, I'll cut that one down. And he was just about to swing his axe, and the birch tree said, hold on, I know where you're hanging away, hold on a minute, Mr. Farmer. He said, think about this, just think about this a little bit, because you think it's just cutting trees down, there's something else going on here. Don't you realise that my withies are used in weaving baskets, making fences? I'm really useful. You really don't want to cut me down. Where are you going to get all your withies from? And it's like, and the farmer thought, yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I won't cut you down. And he moved on to the willow. And the willow said, oh, wait a minute. If you're not cutting him down, he said, my withies are even longer than his and more flexible. He said, no, they do. You've got to have flexible withies, dear. A stiff withy is no use to anyone. Let me tell you. It really isn't.
Enunciate, darling, enunciate.
No, never accept a stiff withy. What you got to do with a stiff withy is you have to bathe it. You have to bathe it until it becomes flexible. That's how it works. Don't ask me, ask him, he's the expert, he's done all that, I've seen him do it. I have, I've seen him take his stiff withies, bathe them. No, he has, he's bathed them, he's done it in front of me. And they're all flexible after that. Yeah. You wouldn't believe what he could do with them after that. Really.
I've done it too, it's great fun.
There you go. Anyway.
I do it with the bark on.
This is what the I bet you do. This is what tree was on, the willow. He said, yeah, if you're not going to cut, really shouldn't cut me down either. And the farmer said, okay, yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's a fair point. And he moved on.
More here tonight than you ever will do at uni.
Yeah, absolutely. This is educational.
This is your dissertation.
Yeah. Don't let anybody tell you this is rubbish. This is all true. That is as true as I'm riding this horse. And you can't see the horse, you see, but I am riding one. No, I am. It's a invisible horse. So he went to another tree. I don't know what I'm talking about now. He went to another tree. What tree did he? I know where he went. No, he went because he just left the willow, didn't he? He's only done all that with the withy, so let's not do that again. Really? Let's not go for all that again.
That's what he said.
I wasn't expecting the withies to be such a big deal, frankly. I've used up half my time just talking about withies. So, instead of that, he went to the pine tree. And he was about to cut it down the pine tree. Went, oh, hang on, no, hold on.
I've got nuts.
He said, put your chopper away, he said. Because, look, have you never heard of pine cones? He said, surely you collect pine cones and put them on your fire, makes your house smell really nice. So you don't want to chop me down. Christmas is coming, you'll want them. And the farmer said, no, we are, okay, that's fair enough, yeah, that's all right. So he walked on a bit and he came across a walnut tree. The walnut tree said, hold on.
I've got nuts.
Yeah. See, you needed to save it for the right tree. And so he said, yeah, walnuts, everybody likes walnuts, you don't want to cut me down. And the farmer said, no, that's fair enough actually, yeah, walnuts is quite like a walnut, I'll leave you. And then he came across a cherry tree. And of course the cherry tree said, hold on, no, don't cut me down. He said, where are you going to get your cherries from? Everyone loves cherry pie, don't you like cherry pie? And the tree said to him, you can take my cherry anytime you want. He said, I put that in specially for you. I wasn't going to do that.
I was going with I've got stones.
But I realised if I didn't do it, you'd do it. So I've done it. He said, fair enough, I do like a cherry, me. So he came across the... Hello, do come in. Don't mind me. Everybody's looking at you, but don't worry about that.
Yeah, fine for me.
So what was I talking about? Cherry tree. No, we've done the cherry tree.
The cherry tree stones.
Walnuts. We've done that. He came across a chestnut tree and he's about to chop it down. He said, "Well, chestnut tree." He said, "Hold on a minute. No, wait a minute. Roasted chestnuts. Christmas is coming up, and I'll tell you what. Chestnuts are good for. Chestnuts are good for."
I've got a chest.
Now you see, you set them up and you're supposed to knock them down. Chestnuts are good for a good stuffing. This story's going to finish in a minute, don't worry. So he said, all right, I'm not going to chop you down then. And just about every tree he went to was giving him a good reason why he shouldn't cut it down. And collectively, they all spoke with a single voice, because your trees can do that, they can speak in chorus. You may not have noticed it, but they can. When the wind blows, you'll hear it. And they all said, and by the way, collectively, all of us, they tried to explain to him that they purified his air, and that without them, he wouldn't be able to breathe, because they take in all the excess carbon dioxide and they put out oxygen, and that's what makes air breathable. For us, is oxygen. If there's no oxygen in the air, we would be stuffed, screwed. But this, unfortunately, was a little beyond the intellectual capacity of the farmer to understand, just as it clearly was beyond the intellectual capacity of Plymouth City Council to understand. With their stupid excuse that you can mitigate for cutting down mature trees by planting young ones again. So you don't understand how this works, do you, you buggers? Fortunately, the council is now in complete disarray. The council leader has had to resign. Nobody else wants to take it over because it's in such a mess. They've all said, "Oh, Tudor should do it. Emperor Tudor from the Labour Party, he should do it." And he's gone. No, I'm not touching it. If we get voted in May, I'll do it, but I'm not doing it. So the council's all over the place now. They've screwed themselves up as well as screwing us up by taking all our trees away. And he rode up. The farmer decided he was giving up with his chopper. He put his chopper back where it came from, in a discreet place. And he decided, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to pick up the dead wood on the ground, the fallen branches and stuff. So he started collecting this up. He had a good bundle of wood. He said, "Yeah, that's all right. All I've got to do. Okay, it's not like logs, but I can come back, get some more." He said, "That'll be fine. I'll do that." Now it just so happens that there was a wood elf watching all this. A wood elf, dear.
Thank you.
And you should know about wood elves. You're the wild woman of Wessex. I haven't put Wessex in because it alliterated. I know you're not from Wessex, actually.
Wilderness woman.
Yeah, wilderness woman of wandering
Elves.
elf. That doesn't start with W.
Winsomeness.
Winsomeness, that'll do. That's it. So the wood elf appeared in a flash. They do that. And he said, you know, I've been watching you and you've been listening, paying attention to why you shouldn't chop down these trees. He said, give it a couple of 100 years, there'll be a whole council of people who need to pay attention the way you do, and they won't. But you have. He said, so I'm going to reward you for because you've realised you don't need to do it. You can gather up all the dead wood, you've got the firewood. He said, you thought this through. I'm going to reward you. And he pulled out his wand. Little wooden wand it was, a little wooden wand from a wood elf. And he said, you know what? He said, you can have this. You can have this. This will be really useful for you. He said, because what you can do with this, you can command anything in nature to do your bidding, and you'll find that really useful. The only thing you've got to remember is don't ask for anything that's against nature. If you remember that, yeah, we've all seen the internet. If you remember that, you'll be fine. And they're fine, well, that's brilliant, that's good. So he had his little wooden wand, and he went back to his farm and deposited his firewood, and he looked at the wand and thought, oh, I'll give this a go, see how it works. Command anything in nature, but nothing against nature. So I know it's in the nature of bees to make honey. So he waved his wand about a bit like that it was. It might have been butcher than that, I don't know. But I think it was a bit like that. That's the way I wave my wand.
Oh,
No, it is. I'm known for it.
all right.
And I've never had any argument.
Advertising your own damn.
People say to me, do that thing with your wand again, and I go like that, and they go, ooh.
Zorro is back in town.
I could make another living out of that. I've done another living, it would be nice to make
Just to
this.
make it worse. Yeah.
Anyway, he did the waving of the wand in a slightly effeminate fashion. But he didn't care, just like I don't. And he summoned the bees and he said, go, bring me honey. And they all buzzed off. And then they buzzed back again, and he brought them loads of honey. He thought, well, this is good, what else can I do? He said, it's in the nature of birds to look for berries. So he did a little wavy like that again, and he summoned birds, and he said, bring me berries. And all the birds went flitting, flying off, and they all came back, each one of them with some berries for him. And he had a pile of berries and some honey. He thought, this is brilliant. He said, I like this. I can make jam, and I can make loads of jam, and what I don't have for myself, I can sell it in the market. This is good, I'm going to do something. I'll have to have a think about how this works. So he went home and he started thinking about other things he could do. And because it's a farm, he runs a farm. So he decided, oh, I know what I'm doing. It's in the nature of moles to dig earth. So he waved his little wand like that. It is a bit like Zorro, you're right. You're right. It's like I'm waving my rapier about, isn't it?
All right. Ooh.
You know, it's very much like that. That's another thing I'm famous for.
Or another thing.
Waving my rapier. No, they can't touch you for it. They can't.
No,
Perfectly
no
legal.
tax on that.
That's hardly a rapier, is it, dear? It's more like a kosh. And he rode up. He did the wavy about, and he summoned the moles. He said, dig the earth for me, make it nice and loose, and then I don't have to do it. I don't have to do any spade work. Fucking brilliant. So he had them in the fields, he had them in the garden, and they're all digging away happy as can be. And he thought, it's in the nature of the wild boar to dig with his tusks to find all the goodies underneath, the truffles and all that malarkey. So he waved his wand again and he summoned a whole load of wild boars. He said, I want you to dig furrows in my fields, plough them up for me with your tusks. And off they went, happy as can be, doing boar-like things and ploughing the field with their tusks. And he thought, okay, I'm going to have to work the rest of it. No, wait a minute. It's in the nature of ants to carry things from one place to another, from where they find it to back into their nest. So he did the wavy, and he summoned some ants, a whole load of ants. He said, carry seeds into the furrows that the boars have made. And so the ants are going and doing all the, well, it wasn't really broadcasting actually, that was where the term broadcasting come from, by the way, just in case you didn't know. It's when you walk along the furrows with your basket full of seeds and you're carelessly putting this side, that side, I don't care where they go. So you're casting them abroad, you see, and that's where broadcasting comes from. Not a lot of people know that, and very fewer people give a monkeys. Nevertheless, I did promise it would be educational, didn't I? So they're sowing all the seeds in the furrows, and before long he's thought of all kinds of work he can not have to do because he can get another animal to do it because it's in their nature to do it. And after jobs he had to do on the farm, didn't have to do anymore. And every time he came across a job, he put his mind to it. Is there an animal that could do this? Before long, he had like whole armies of animals working his farm for him. And it was all splendid because he didn't have to do anything. And he had plenty to take to market, plenty to sell, and he'd done next to nothing to achieve it. Well, this went on, but of course, there are those amongst you who will realise, and there are those amongst you who won't, by the way, but there are those amongst you who will realise, if you don't get everything done for you all the time and you don't have to do anything yourself, it's not necessarily good for you to go through that all the time. Now, there's a number of people looking at me going, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Of course it is. No, it makes you lethargic. And so he got lethargic. That's sort of lazy, by the way, because everybody told you it's educational. No, lethargic, lazy. You should be making notes. Why are you not writing
This
it down?
is his dissertation. He's recording it.
Is he? Oh, I should want royalties. So, yeah, he basically became fat and lazy and stopped doing stuff. And he started to believe that actually he should be entitled to have a life of leisure. And everything should be done for him. And why shouldn't it? And he went on like this until the winter came round again. And when the winter came round again and it started to get cold, and he said to himself, do you know what, I don't like the cold. I'm not fond of the cold. I don't like it at all. I could put some of the firewood on the fire, but that's a bit of a chore. I don't really do chores anymore. Besides which, I've got my wavy wand. So I'm sure I can fix it that way. So it's a wavy wand.
Yeah.
So he took his wavy wand.
It's a wavy waggly one.
And he looked up into the sky, and he did a wavy wagload like that. And he summoned the sun, and he said, I know it's winter, but I want you to make it hot. And the sun suddenly became brighter and hotter, and it got hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter until everything was dried out. And he was holding the wand and it burst into flames. It was that hot and dry. So, well, my wand's broke. And he said, well, it's all right, you can stop now. And the son's paying no attention, he's got no wand now. He said, really, honestly, you can stop now. It got drier and hotter. And before long, his farmhouse caught fire. All his crops caught fire. Everything was ablaze. And before very long, he himself succumbed to powerful sunburn, the kind we get now since we've screwed the environment up, by the way. You used to be able to sit in the sun and it was nice. Don't do it anymore, let me tell you. It's a powerful sunburn, sunstroke, died on the spot. And of course the reason why all of that happened, the reason why he had to die, why everything went wrong, was because he asked for something that was against nature. He was arrogant enough to think that he knew better than nature does. A little bit like Plymouth City Bleeding Council.
Yeah.
My last story for this section is only a short little one. It's not really about, we've done that gag already. Did that gag at the beginning. It's not really about trees, but it's got a tree in it. So I'm going to do it anyway. It's got a tree at the beginning and a tree at the end. So there was where are you going? Just here. There was, where are you going? Toilet. Right.
He's recording this dissertation.
He's finished his dissertation in the toilet. How's he going to do that?
He just looks so ashamed to be going to the toilet.
Yeah. And did you see he did the invisible walk? As famous we discovered as the invisible walk. Whenever we're working, and somebody, I say working, and somebody like has to move, and especially if they think they're going to go in front of us, they do the invisible walk. They do this. It's like the crowd's. No one can see me if I'm doing this. So no, be bold. Just say, sod you, I'm going across, and just deal with it. The dogs don't do it. Have you noticed that? The dogs don't do the invisible walk. They just go, I've had enough of you, and go behind the bar and go to sleep. And there's a number of faces I'm looking at and look like they might want to do exactly the same thing. So anyway, there was a fella that lived really close to a huge, big, large mountain. And winter had arrived and, see, no invisible walk. That's what I like to see. Be bold. Boldly go where every other bugger's been before. I like to throw a Star Trek reference in if I can. So, where was I? Oh, I haven't started yet, have I? They lived by this mountain, and he was looking up at this mountain one day, and like I said, winter had set in, everything was freezing, and the water had started to freeze, and it was really cold. And on the side of this mountain was a tree growing, just growing out of the mountain. And he thought, look at that tree. It's like it's stuck itself right on the side of that mountain, and it's growing like it doesn't have a care in the world. He said, that tree, that's an arrogant tree, that. That tree must think it's the strongest in the world because it's rooted itself on this mountain. All the other trees are in the forest. No, I'm having this mountain. I'm going to show you how strong I am. He said, well, I'm going to teach that tree a lesson because it's not the strongest in the world. And he picked up his chopper. Doesn't matter how many times I do that gag, does it? It still works. Only over here, though. And he threw his chopper over his shoulder. And he walked up the mountain till he was facing the tree. And he addressed the tree and he said, you...
He was dressed.
He was, yeah, he was. And he was addressed and fully dressed because it was winter. I did mention that. And so, I've no idea. I have really no idea. And so, he addressed the tree and he said, look, you arrogant tree, he said, you think you're the strongest that there is. You are the strongest of them all. But I'm here to tell you, you're not the strongest of them all, because I've got my chopper in my hand. And I can, oh, surely not, must have gone by now. It hasn't worn off yet. Maybe it never will. He said, and I can cut you down with this axe. So you're not the strongest that there is. I'm the strongest that there is. And here comes the proof. And he lifted the axe and swung it to chop the tree. And as he did, he slipped on a patch of ice and fell in a heap. And while he was wondering where the heap had come from, Spike Milligan joke, I'd like to throw them in if I can. He got up a bit dazed and he looked at where he said, I've slipped on the ice. He said, I thought I'm stronger than the tree because I can cut the tree down. I'll take that as read. But actually, I'm not the strongest of them all because that ice defeated me. The ice is the strongest of them all. So I'm learning something today. And as he was speaking, convincing himself that the ice was the strongest of them all, the clouds parted, and for a little while the sun came out. And as the sun was beaming down, the ice began to melt. And this did not escape his notice. Let's see if he does the invisible walk again or not. This did not escape his notice.
No.
Yes, invisible walk, fantastic. I never saw it. Did you see him? I didn't see him. No. How did you get from over there to over here? I didn't see you move. It's that invisible walk. It's brilliant. So he's looking at all this. He's taking all this. And he said, I thought the ice was the strongest of them all, but it's not because the sun can melt the ice. Should have thought about that before. The sun's the strongest of them all. Yeah, I'm getting it now. I'm getting the hang of this. The sun is the strongest of them all. And as he's looking up at the sun saying this, the wind blew up and blew the clouds right across the sun. And the temperature dropped again and the ice started to freeze. And he thought, well, hang on a minute then, the sun can be defeated as well. The sun's not the strongest of them all. It's the wind. The wind blew the clouds in front of the sun. The wind is the strongest of them all. And the wind was blowing puffly, real strong gales. And he's thinking, I better go home now because if the wind is strongest of them all, I'm going to, it's not going to be good for me if I stay here in the wind. The last thing I want is trouble with the wind. Yeah, I thought that might work. But only over here. And he was just about to head off home, and he looked up the mountain. He thought, well, wait a minute now, this wind is blowing really strong. There's leaves and stuff flying around everywhere, and the mountain, he's oblivious to it. The mountain is still standing there, and the wind is not having any effect on it at all. So the wind isn't the strongest of them all. It's the mountain. The mountain is the strongest of them all. I'm getting the hang of this now. The mountain is the strongest of them all. And as he was saying this and looking at the mountain, he saw out the corner of his eye the tree that was growing on the side of the mountain. And he thought, no, but wait a minute though. That mountain thinks it's oblivious to everything, but it's not. It's not impervious to this tree growing on it, sinking its roots into the very rock. So the mountain is not the strongest of them all. This tree is the strongest of them all. And then he thought, no, hang on a minute. The tree is not the strongest of them all because I can cut that tree down with my axe. And I'm going to prove it. That the tree is that I'm the strongest of them all. Not the tree, not the mountain, not the sun, not the wind, not the ice, me. And he grabbed his axe and swung it to make the first cut in the tree, and as he did, he slipped on the same patch of ice and went on his arse again. And for all I know, he's doing that still. I thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen,